They say it ain't tricking if you got it. I got it, but she can't get into my pockets. Fuck what it costs, fitted like a boss. I be smoking strong, bitch, I'm from the north.
Welcome to Sound on Fire Productions. My name is Jasper Jones. I'd like to start off by thanking you for signing up, and I hope you're enjoying the incentives that you received for signing up to my mailing list. I was asked to master an album by Don Perion out of Toronto, Ontario, and it's an 18-song mixtape that's coming out very shortly called Apex 245. I decided to make this video to give you an overview of processing I used for one of the songs I mastered on his new album. The song is called Rubber Bands, and I hope you enjoy the overview of my processing. Alright, let's get started. I'm going to play the track so you get a good understanding of what we're dealing with. During that time, I'm going to bypass the plugins and then unbypass them so you can hear the processing in action. I would always suggest listening on some good monitors or headphones.
We making movies, we be shooting, all my niggas ride out. Keep it moving, getting to it, all my niggas ride out. I got the Goonies, they be shooting, all my young niggas ride out. And we just want the rubber band. We making movies, we be shooting, all my niggas ride out. Keep it moving, get to it, all my niggas ride out. I got the Goonies, they be shooting, all my youngins ride out. And we just want the rubber bands. And I just want the rubber bands. I know you want the rubber bands. I know you want the rubber bands. So we gon' get the rubber bands. We gon' I heard some niggas around and they planning to stop me. I'm driving around in a blue Maserati.
Alright, so that's a song there with the processing I did, bypassed and non-bypassed. Certainly a difference. One of my goals during this master was to bring the vocals back into the instrumentation and to clean it up a little bit. And this cut right here at 271 hertz is not typical. It's a big cut, wide cut. I think maybe during the initial mix by the engineer, he may have had some weird EQ on the submixed or master. So sometimes you just, when you're on timeline, you can't go back to the mixing engineer because the record label needs this out now. So let's take a listen to this.
We making movies, we be shooting, all my niggas ride out. Keep it moving, getting to it, all my niggas ride out.
It's always good to go back to the mixing engineer when you have an issue like this to figure it out. But since I was able to find the frequency, remove it, and there wasn't any issues, I kept going with the master, and it sounded good.
We making movies, we be shooting, all my niggas ride out. Keep it moving, getting to it, all my niggas ride out.
My apologies, it's 221 hertz, not 271 hertz, as I mentioned before, for that wide cut. The next plugin I'm using in my chain is the UAD API Vision Channel Strip. I'm using this for the 212L preamp, and then doing a minus 20 dB reduction because of so much gain I'm adding. And this is adding a lot of warmth. The transformers are famous from the 70s and 80s. So let's take a listen and see what it's doing.
We making movies, we be shooting, all my niggas ride out. Keep it moving, getting to it, all my niggas ride out. I got the Goonies, they be shooting, all my youngins ride out. And we just want the rubber band. We making keep.
The characteristics of that 212L is just great. It's a little subtle, but certainly hear the difference in the characteristics and just adding some warmth, bringing the track forward in a sense. I have another instance of Fabfilter Pro Q2, and I'm using mid-side EQ, meaning that some of these are affecting the sides, some are affecting the middle. Let's take a listen.
Keep it moving, getting to it, all my niggas ride out. I got the.
So I'm doing a high-pass filter with the mid and sides, 18 hertz. You're not going to miss this in with most audio devices, and so I'm just removing that. It's not missing it. The human ear is not going to pick up on those low frequencies, so I just remove it anyways. I have a high-pass filter on the sides. This is all reverb splashes that we're not going to miss. I have about a 3.5 dB cut at 277 hertz in the middle of the track, just to bring back the vocal a little bit. I have a low-pass filter here at 20,000 hertz. This print is going to be MP3 44.1 kilohertz, so you're not going to hear it anyways when it's compressed to that format. We'll take a listen to the before and after.
say word, they gon' lock on. And we gon' go Saigon. And let bygones be bygones.
The next plugin I have in my chain is the Fabfilter Proteus. This is for the S's in the vocals to tame them. When you're listening to the track on different audio devices, each audio device will have different frequency bumps, and when you're listening to some on the 7K bump, it's going to bring up those S's. So just a little bit of de-essing on the vocal goes a long way on the master. It's also going to tame some of the high end of the hi-hat that's going to be introduced soon in the song. Let's take a listen and hear when it comes in.
I know you want a rubber band, so we gon' get a rubber band. I heard some niggas around and they planning to stop me. I'm driving around in a blue Maserati. Them niggas gon' hate, so you really gon' watch me.
So it's subtle, and you can see the Proteus doing some work here when the hi-hats come in. The important key is when de-essing in a master is to do it subtly and a few instances. So you're going to see this plugin come up again. But let's overdo it and see what it sounds like when we up the range.
I know you want a rubber band. Keep it moving, get into it. All my niggas ride out. I got the goonies.
You can really hear that plugin work, and when overdone, it just kills the track. So subtly and a few of these, if needed, is the key to it.
Keep it moving, get into it. All my niggas ride out.
The next plugin again is the Fabfilter Pro Q2. So doing some more EQ, some mid EQ at around 203 hertz.
Get into it. All my niggas.
This is just for the vocals again to bring it back, clean it up a little.
All my youngins ride out, and we just want them rubber bands. And I just want them rubber bands. I know you want them rubber bands. I heard some niggas around and they planning to stop.
Just some before and after. Another instance of Fabfilter Pro Q2.
I heard some niggas around and they planning to stop me.
It's a mid EQ at 191 hertz, about 2.5 dB cut. And it's for the vocals just to bring it back and clean it up. And I know we're affecting the mids, which means we're affecting the kick and some aspects of the master. But since the vocals are the most important part, we need to do what we got to do to make it sound the best.
I heard some niggas around and they planning to stop me. I'm driving around in a blue Maserati. Them niggas gon' hate, so you really gon' watch me. Them niggas gon' hate, so you really gon' copy.
We have another instance of Fabfilter Pro DS, just for the S's for the vocals as well as the hi-hat, just kind of taming them in different sections.
I heard some niggas around and they planning to stop me. I'm driving around in a blue Maserati. Them niggas gon' hate, so you really gon' watch me. Them niggas gon' hate.
I have Slate Digital's VCC. It's the Brick K4E. It's emulating the SSL 4000E console, adding some energy, a little bit of presence. It's very subtle. Take a listen.
I heard some niggas around and they planning to stop me. I'm driving around in a blue Maserati. Them niggas gon' hate, so you really gon' watch me. Them niggas gon' hate, so you really gon' copy. I said them niggas don't wanna. I roll up with a shot, gon' go.
Just adding a little bit of summing. It's very subtle, and I don't have the setting on high, but it's making a difference. Next, I have the Softube saturation knob. This is very, very subtle, but it's adding a little bit more saturation, some energy to the master. When adding these saturation plugins to the master, you're just coloring it a little bit. It's very subtle, but what you're doing is you're just building the sound of the record and the song.
We gon' go Saigon, and let bygones be bygones. My niggas gon' ride cause they want this shit right now. Them niggas gon' shoot cause they want this shit right now.
I'll exaggerate this plugin a little bit just to show you what happens when you add a lot of this saturation. It's going to get louder and it's not going to sound as good, but just to give you an idea of what cranking the saturation knob up will do to your track.
We gon' go Saigon, and let bygones be bygones. My niggas gon' ride cause they want this shit right now.
You could definitely ruin your track adding too much of the saturation, so just a little bit will go a long way. Some more EQ from the Fabfilter Pro Q2. Let's take a listen.
We gon' go Saigon, and let bygones be bygones. My niggas gon' ride cause they want this shit right now.
221 hertz for the vocal again, just to clean it up, bring it back.
Want them rubber bands, and we gon' get
I like that 1000 hertz in the middle. I found it brought the vocal forward, but didn't do any kind of damage to it. So a bit of a bump there, just to emphasize the 1000 hertz for the vocal.
on and let bygones be bygones. My niggas gon' ride cause they want this shit right now. Niggas gon' shoot cause they want this shit right now.
The next plugin is another EQ. It's by IK Multimedia, and it's the mastering EQ. I find this EQ really smooth when boosting, especially in the low frequencies. So sometimes when I'm limiting an EDM track and I'm having issues with the low end, I'll remove some of it with the Fabfilter Pro Q2, and then add it back in with the T-Rex mastering EQ.
I said the niggas don't wanna. I roll up with a shotgun. My youngins gon' pop on. Say word, they gon' lock on. And we gon' go Saigon. And let bygones be bygones.
Yeah, I just find that very smooth when boosting. Again, especially for the low end. The next plugin I'm using is by Plugin Alliance. It's the Mag EQ4. It's a musical EQ. It's not for cutting, but I use it mostly for the ear band. It does something special to those high frequencies. Just take a listen.
I said the niggas don't wanna. I roll up with a shotgun. My youngins gon' pop on. Say word, they gon' lock on. And we gon' go Saigon. And let bygones be bygones. My niggas gon' ride cause they want this shit right now. Them niggas.
It's very subtle, but again, it's bringing the high end of the track alive. And I'll crank this ear gang just to show you what it's actually doing. Again, I wouldn't suggest adding a whole lot of this, just enough to bring it alive, not to ruin.
I said the niggas don't wanna. I roll up with a shotgun. My youngins gon' pop on. Say word, they gon' lock on.
So adding a lot of that can ruin your track. But for this track, I wanted a bit of a darker sound. So just a little bit to bring it alive, but nothing that's going to ruin it. Alright, I have an instance of the Fabfilter Pro-Mb. I'm using this again to tame some of the S's as well as the high end of the hi-hats. I might have too much of this on here. I'll have to take a listen, so I might remove some of it. But again, it's just to tame the high end that's going to come out on certain sound devices that will sound a little unpleasant.
I said the niggas don't wanna. I roll up with a shotgun. My youngins. I said the niggas don't wanna. I roll up with a shotgun. My youngins gon' pop on. Say word, they gon' lock on. And we gon' go Saigon. And let bygones be bygones.
So yeah, I took it back a little bit there. You don't want the compressor to slam those frequencies. It's just to tame it a little bit, and pretty much that's what this whole process has been, taming some of the frequencies. But this Fabfilter Pro-Mb does a good job. The next plugin I'm using is another UAD plugin, and it's the Pultec, the EQP1A. It's an emulation of the actual analog EQ, and it does something special to the track with the circuitry as well as when boosting. So I like it again for the low end. So let's take a listen.
I said the niggas don't wanna. I roll up with a shotgun. My youngins gon' pop on. Say word, they gon' lock on. And we gon' go Saigon. And let bygones be bygones. My niggas gon' ride cause they want this shit right now. And I just want them rubber band.
As you can hear, the Pultec is just adding a little bit more to the low end, that 60 hertz, the sub frequencies, and yeah, it definitely does a really good job. I'll show you what the Pultec is actually doing using the Fabfilter Pro Q2. So from my ears and understanding of the Pultec, when you set it at 60 hertz, it's doing a low shelf boost from 60 hertz down, and then with the attenuation, when you start pushing that up, it's doing a cut above 60 hertz, so it's emphasizing that frequency. So kind of like this. more attenuation you add, the more of a cut you're going to get above the frequency you choose. So at 60 hertz, we're going to basically cut above 60 hertz, and that's going to emphasize that frequency a little bit more.
We making movies, we be shooting, all my niggas ride out. Keep it moving, get into it, all my niggas ride out.
I really dig the shadow hose compressor that UAD put out. It's in optimal mode right now, so it's a fixed 2-to-1 ratio as well as attack and release time, just like the LA two-way. So basically these don't matter, and then I have the filter on for 80 hertz, anything below 80 is not compressed, and then Transformer 1 on, so it's not as colored as Transformer 2 or 3, or not as aggressive. So none of these matter right here, these knobs don't matter, it's all fixed, and it glues the track together really well. The final plugin I'm using before the limiter is another Slate Digital plugin, and it's the FG Bomber, which can add a lot of weight and depth to your track. It's a blend-in plugin, so you put it to taste, and I'll exaggerate it so you can hear what it's doing.
I don't do much but the money dance. Money stretched like a rubber band. On black sand, getting suntan with your girl on my hand.
So it's definitely adding a lot of depth and weight to the master. And basically you would blend this in to taste. So just take a listen.
I don't do much but the money dance. Money.
Yeah, so it's ruining the track, but you can hear how much that kick is coming out. So we'll blend it in here.
I don't do much but the money dance. Money stretched like a rubber band. On black sand, getting suntan with your girl on my hand. S Don, what's poppin', G? Keep it hot like a cup of tea. I cut her off when I bag a chick. If she starts off, I don't usually dub with the cold rip. Hold the game with a tight fist. You can buy a lot, shit with money, but keeping it real is priceless. Diamond studs on each air. Persian rugs on a good year. Ferragamo that I wear. In my closet got a few.
So that's my processing, bypassed and unbypassed again. Certainly a big difference. I hope you enjoyed S-Dom Perion's Rubber Bands mastering overview. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. And you got that 50% off mastering for signing up to Sound on Fire Productions grand opening giveaway. So certainly use that whenever you're ready. Thanks a lot for watching.